The death of Edgar Allan Poe in Baltimore, Maryland on October 7th, 1849. Now, a little bit more than a century ago, the world lost Edgar Allan Poe. It's a terrible thing for a man to die, but Edgar did. This is why. When the strategists down at Whig HQ looked to be short a vote or two and liked to take it on the chin, they called the party faithful in and told them, "Boys, we're facing sure defeat unless we can get to the man on the street." And those good old boys of the Whig persuasion, moved by a sense of great occasion, swore that they'd as lief be reamed as wake to find their party creamed. "We got a ship of state to keep afloat, so we better haul ass and get out the vote." So they sat and spat and bit cigars, thinking of patronage and power. For when his party's in a jam, a man don't need a diagram. "Brothers," they cried, "we're going to die like pigs if we don't come out fighting like men in wigs." And then those stout-hearted men of Baltimore split up into teams of 3 or 4, and armed with gin and laudanum, they hauled in half the city scum. Then, bored with bums, they picked up anyone, too drunk or old or sickly to run. And having divvied up their catch into handy groups, they crammed them into rat holes known as coops, which were a little weak on ventilation, elbow room, and sanitation. They held them there without food or reprieve for a full 5 days before election eve. When the word came that votes were needed, friend, you can bet that word got heeded, and off went those stiffs to the polls where they weren't no registration rolls, and every candidate for a coffin was free to vote early and free to vote often, which is why they got dragged from ward to ward while the early return turns were being scored, and friendly hands were always free to mark their ballots properly. And when the word came that the foe was beat, why, every bum found himself back on the street, which is where a doc found Edgar Poe that night, smelling like disease and out like a light. They carried him off to hospital, where his fever raged and his heartbeat fell, till one Sunday morning, an hour before dawn, Edgar Allan Poe was gone. Now, don't wait supper, and don't hold your breath, but Edgar Allan Poe, he got voted to death.